Good evening. We opened up our meeting at 6 o'clock this evening because we had an executive session. So we're on item number 6 on the board agenda, the Board of Education Spotlight. So I'll pass this portion off to Superintendent Thompson.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for tonight's board meeting. And it's always a pleasure and honor to introduce and recognize all the great things that our students are doing, obviously with the support of our administrative team and our teachers, and I'm just very excited for the 3 kiddos that we're going to recognize here. So I'm going to try my best not to mispronounce the names here. So
recording in progress.
So the Board of Education would like to recognize and honor the following Baldwinsville Central School District students for their outstanding achievements and accomplishments. Aiden Maloney McCrae, Giacomo Moritz, and Sonia Nadzan. Did I do that okay? Did I hit those right? Okay. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I can see Mr. Alex in the back there, Ewing, saying, nodding, okay, all right, so, whew, okay. These students are being recognized, they're advancing to the oral round of the poststandardsyracuse.com spelling bee. Aiden is a 5th grader at Eldon Elementary School. Giacomo and Sonia are 5th graders at Palmer. And the students won their spelling bee and competed in the regional written round. They scored among the top 20 scores on the written round to qualify for the regional oral round, which will be held on March 5th at the Everson Museum. Outstanding job, guys. Please come on up.
Get nervous doing the spelling, right? Were you as nervous as I was trying to make sure I got your name correct? Probably, okay.
Aiden must have gotten lost. They were on their way. I don't know what happened.
Okay, well.
So I can take it if afterwards.
Okay, if he does come in, Tom will take pause and.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Parents, if you want to come up, get a picture of you. This is supposed to say mom and dad and teachers.
Congratulations, guys. We look forward to having you represent Baldwinsville Central School District in the next round. Good luck and enjoy the experience. Okay, next up on the agenda, we have the correspondence, board activities, and committee reports. On January 25th, we had a technology committee meeting. Did anybody like to report out on that?
Sure, I'll take a go, and then Jeff, I can't remember if you were on. Yeah. So RJ and team went through some of the, survey results about student and teacher services that are being provided by the technology department. And I think what we discovered as part of the survey that we're missing the subset of the population, a large subset of the population. So we're going to go back and collect some more data on getting some more input from I believe it's the high school students that were missing from the survey, which is kind of a critical part of our population. So RJ and team have an action item to go back and reissue the overall survey. I think the other thing that came out of the discussion is that I think we felt that there was a lot of focus on the tactical desktop support and tooling for the classroom, and which is all very important, but takes up a significant amount of time in the overall discussion. And although important, there are some other elements missing from curriculum that we can offer in terms of technology and opportunities for our students and teachers, for that matter, that we can and should be thinking about a little bit more deeply. So we're going to think a little bit about how we tackle both of those topics, which are both very important, but certainly trying to offer more opportunities in the area of technology and opportunities beyond what we're offering today. So things like drone training and robotics and things like that, where we do have some activities ongoing. There's a recognition that we should be taking a closer look at some of those other things. So I don't know that I have much else to recall from it.
Yeah, just a couple other things. I think the general infrastructure in the buildings seemed to be well received, and always room for improvement, but I think overall there was a general consensus with the survey results we did get. I believe, and I don't know if RJ can fill us in, but I think the survey for the high schoolers that was somehow missed has been done. At least I was told by one high schooler at my house that they had to take it. So I believe we corrected that issue, whatever the issue was. So, yep, and RJ's, so we should have a nice full set of data to then get all the results and make sure the board's aware of those. So overall, it was a good exercise.
Thank you. And on January 26th, there's a DEI committee meeting. Is there anyone who can report out on that?
I can start. So we had the Q Center come in a few meetings ago, and we just kind of had a recap of that. One of the goals or the initiatives of the DEI committee is taking a look at some of the policies, code of conduct, in terms of looking at it through an equity lens. There is a significant amount of overlap between the members of the DEI committee and the Code of Conduct committee, so they'll be able to bring that, and there's no sense in duplicating that effort. That isn't the case with the policy, so that might be an area where the DEI can take a look in terms of, are the policies creating an adverse impact in terms of equity? Joan, do you have anything to add?
Well, I know they talked a lot about the Q Center because it was a very good presentation that we went to and very informative, but the Q Center will actually mold whatever type of presentation you need, and a lot of them talked about bringing the Q Center back for more professional development for staff and understanding. So I think that's something they're going to be looking at down the road as well.
Just make a note that I think one of the actions that came out of which I wasn't able to attend or log into the last DEI committee, is that we're going to take a look at how we broadcast meetings, at least through board docs, that it's through there and not through the Google Meet that was posted.
Yeah, it's another. I don't think we realized you couldn't get in, but it's definitely more user friendly as well.
Superintendent Thompson's going to continue the Board of Ed spotlight.
Aiden, you know how to shut down a meeting, buddy. We're proud of you. We're recognizing you that you were you're the fifth grader at Eldon, correct? Yes. And you won the spelling bee and competed in the regional written round. Scored among the top 20 scorers in the written round to qualify for the regional oral round, which will be held on March 5th at the Everson Museum. We are so incredibly proud of you, sir. Would you please come on up and be recognized?
Take a nice picture up there. Your mom taught me. That's right. Nice job, buddy. Awesome job, buddy.
Thank you, Tom.
On January 31st, we had a special Board of Education meeting where we went into executive session. The Board of Education and the superintendent established agreed upon goals for evaluative purposes. And we do this mid-year, and we'll do this again at the end of the year. It's a very positive meeting. We look forward to learning more about what Superintendent Thompson has accomplished so far. Accomplished a lot in a short period of time.
It's we. But thank you.
And then prior to the meeting tonight, we had a policy committee meeting. If anyone wants to share what was discussed there, we can tag team it.
I can start off. We first discussed student travel, field trips, more specifically about foreign travel or foreign language travel. And some of the teachers were polled and inquired as to what procedure they use, if they do internal or use outside sources. As of right now, we have a group that uses actually they all use outside sources, I believe. And there was also discussion about possibly starting a booster club for the travel to help with fundraising. And at this point, it was the understanding from teachers that that'd be very difficult to do. So they're leaning towards using outside agencies for travel.
We also discussed the naming policy, and it looks like we're going to keep that the same as of now. That's policy 2360. If anyone wants to talk about 8330, curriculum instruction materials, controversial issues, right now we are going to keep that the same, and the administration will work on administrative regulations and bring that back, share that with the board. But the goal is to not only have the policy, which is a broad overview, but the controversial issues or any policy, the regulations will also be up on board docs for people to have access to in time. That's a goal, so we're more aware of the finer details falling under the policy umbrella. Anyone want to talk about the survey that went out for the grading policy for policy 7210?
Well, you had a grading policy went out, but some of the comments kind of contradicted some of the numbers as well. But I think we wanted it broken down a little bit more by grade level, so there was consistency at grade level, and get the take from the people that are actually in the classroom. And then the secondary level by subject area. A little bit more detailed survey and more consistent with what all the teachers want and what's best for the kids in the classroom. So I think they're going to be breaking it down some more.
The only thing that I'll add is we talked about, we don't currently have a scheduled meeting for March, so we are going to find a date that works for everybody on the committee and come together again so that we can continue working on discussions, because we've had a lot of policies kind of come our way. So we're adding that to the calendar.
And we had a shorter meeting, so that's all the policies that we were able to get through tonight. And does anyone else have any other meetings or events that they attended?
Joel, were you gonna talk about the recognition or the naming?
No, actually, I was gonna talk about the CNY SBA and the legislative breakfast that they had on the 5th.
Okay.
That I attended, so if you read the attachment that Rick Timms sent you, it's pretty specific, and he went over everything with all of them, and they all were very, very supportive. And then there was a round table from a woman from City BOCES. And she did an excellent job, and the video, I think you got the video in an email. I think it's really informative. If you look at that video, it really explains the framework. And she did a really, really good job with it, and it gives you a much better understanding of what the framework is that came from the state. So that was 2 suggestions that I would have at this point.
And then there were 4 of us that also took part in a webinar put on by the New York State School Board Association, specifically for curriculum. The focus was on the board's responsibility based on law and some policies, and the best way to communicate curriculum out to the community. Right now, there's a lot of opinions versus facts, and sometimes they're not always aligned, and how important it is to be transparent and communicate exactly what's going on. There's different ways that you can do that through developing like district committees, curriculum committees, updating our website, our curriculum page, have it a little more interactive to learn more about what's happening in the classrooms. Right now, our responsibility is to make sure that the curriculum's aligned to the New York State standards, and we have and it's really the discretion of the board, you know, who's involved, what part of the process for the development, the evaluation, and the continuous improvement. But we have a lot to talk about, and you know, starting those conversations probably in the policy committee and as a full board, because curriculum is what we're all here for the kids, and everything else is bonus. But right now it's finding a good balance between, you know, making sure the teachers can teach, the students can learn, and the board is fulfilling our obligations based on the law with input from everybody in the community to do the right thing for our students.
I noticed the recording just came out today in an email, and I was very impressed with, especially the superintendent from Albany, and their process for curriculum and developing curriculum and the board reports, as well as BBS.
Joan, I completely agree with you. I was very impressed with that presentation.
Both districts, 2 different schools, 2 different sizes, different lengths of their curriculum review process. Yeah, it was a very good presentation, for sure. Helps give us direction.
I did have the pleasure of attending the combined orchestra band concert last Wednesday at the auditorium in Baker. So special kudos out to Mr. Karki and Mr. Vanderstouw. That's an additional concert that wasn't originally planned, but they were able to pull it off very well, and it was very unique tribute to Led Zeppelin that the band and orchestra played together. So that was pretty neat. You know, they played some more traditional songs before that, the band separately and the orchestra separately, but then they combined and came on stage together and had a great performance. So again, kudos out to everyone that participated in that. It was great.
Anyone have anything else to share? Okay, upcoming events. This Thursday we have a wellness committee meeting. Monday, the district offices will be closed for the President's Day holiday, and February break will be the remainder of the week. There's no school for the students. On March 3rd, the board will be doing building tours of Baker and Ray to check out the conditions over there and, you know, improvements that may need to be made. March 7th, we have our next regular Board of Education meeting. Oh, my computer just went out. March 10th, the DEI Steering Committee meeting. Friday, March 18th is a half day for parent-teacher conferences for students K through 5. And also we have our building tours of all the elementary schools scheduled for the 18th as well. new superintendent's conference day for new students on March 21st. And again, we'll have a board meeting on the 21st with a facilities committee meeting preceding that. Next up on the agenda, we have our student board report. So Katie, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. So planning for Senior Bowl has begun, and we know that it's going to be at the On Center this year. To help fundraise, the senior class is selling Crunch tickets. These tickets can be used at any game, and they cost $20, and half of the proceeds of each ticket goes to the senior class. And today, Baker and Derby both celebrated Valentine's Day with candygrams, which also serve as a fundraising opportunity for us. Baker is having a Valentine's Day Spirit Week this week, and the hallways have been decorated with posters made by Acceptance Coalition and other groups to celebrate Black History Month. Derby began their community-wide dialogue, and Baker will be starting ours after February break. And Derby and Baker Student Advisory Councils met together last week. We took part in some leadership building activities, including a social emotional learning circle, and had a great time meeting one another and discussing our discussing our experiences with student leadership. Baker's Band and Orchestra had a concert last Wednesday. That was a really cool thing to be a part of. Like, we did our Led Zeppelin arrangement. That was really, really cool. And then also on the topic of music, the voting for round 5 of the Syracuse Area Music Awards has ended, and our top 4 in each category will be announced on the 15th. So please keep an eye out and continue to vote for our marching band so we can have that. I think that would be our 3rd year in a row winning that award, so that would be really cool. Just one more thing, if you look at the handout I've shared with you, I know we're a couple short. I think just about everybody's got one. So Baker was awarded an educational opportunity grant from the Association of American Woodturners, and we were featured in their magazine. So this is a great accomplishment and holds great opportunities for students involved in woodworking at Baker High School. So I just thought I'd share that, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee. Nice job. You had a lot to report out this month. Thank you. Next up on the agenda, item 8, we have requests to speak. Kim, how many do we have tonight? 5? 5 or 6? Okay, you can call them up, yeah. Are you? Oh, yes, thank you. Public comments are welcome. They're limited to 3 minutes per speaker for a total of up to 30 minutes for all speakers combined. They should not include specific individuals or positions. Unless appropriate, the Board of Education will respond by letter to the individual's comment question. Board members will not engage in conversation or comment during this period. Specific employee or student concerns should be communicated to the superintendent of schools during regular business hours. If there are more than 5 individuals speaking on the same topic, please limit the topic to just 5 speakers of your choice as a group. We are all here for our students, and it is expected that everyone speaking tonight will follow these rules, and everyone present will model the behaviors that are expected of the students in this school district.
Our first speaker this evening is Lauren Pastel. I apologize if I did not say your name right in regards to student health, so please say your name correctly when you enter the speaker.
Good evening. I'm a parent of 2 children in the Baldwinsville district. I'm here to express my support in the district moving towards a mask optional policy if and when the governor lifts the mandate. I have a 2nd grader and a kindergartner, and they are struggling in the school environment currently. Our kids may not be as resilient as we initially thought they were. They are carrying wounds that are not apparent to the naked eye, as mental health is not easily distinguished from the outside. They may have been resilient in the first 2 weeks, month, or 2 years of this pandemic, but to continue to say that now is turning a blind eye to the toll that's taking on their mental health, which is an essential part of their overall health. There's a clear correlation between forcing kids to mask for 8 hours per day and what the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and Surgeon General has affirmed as a youth mental health crisis. The American Academy of Pediatrics said 88% of children and pediatrician psychologists have reported they've seen an increase and children with mental health issues in the last few months of the pandemic alone. Our children need to observe the facial cues of their teachers and their peers. They deserve to be heard and speak without a barrier impeding them. They need to be able to hug their friend when they feel joyful and play freely without restrictions. They need to be children again. The future well-being of our community depends on how we support and invest in the next generation. I'm asking for you to allow students and teachers to have that choice to take off their mask. Those students or teachers who feel that the mask is hurting their ability to academically advance, negatively impacting their emotional or social well-being, or hindering their ability to teach. This choice also allows others who are not yet comfortable have the freedom to choose to continue to wear a mask as well. I need to have complete autonomy for my children, just as you should have complete autonomy for your children. And parents are the best stakeholders to make informed decisions about the health of their children, not the government or state. I'm standing here in front of the Baldwinsville community leaders who have the opportunity to restore normalcy in your schools, and you have the power to make it happen. School boards and superintendents of both large and small districts in our area, including North Syracuse, West Genesee, Phoenix, West Hill, have publicly shared that they are going to be moving towards a mask optional policy. And Baldwinsville is one of the most supportive communities that I've come to live here in the last 10 years. And we need to also stand in support for our neighbors' freedom to choose. Kids have carried this burden for too long. Adults can go to concerts, bars, and sporting events without such harsh restrictions. Continuing to restrict children is not a fair distribution of the burden for a demographic that is the least at risk with a 99.9% survival rate according to Johns Hopkins University. At school, they're in a controlled environment with assigned seats in class, at lunch, and on the bus. Logistically, it can be done, and we owe it to our children to make every effort in restoring the educational environment they deserve. So please consider this and vote the opportunity to give them a chance to thrive again. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Nicole Pompo in regards to masks.
Good evening. I spoke in front of you in July of 2021 advocating for individual parent decisions regarding the wearing of masks before the state issued its blanket mandate across all schools. It was followed up by a letter that I sent to each of you individually, and unfortunately the only feedback I received was a form letter. Many of us parents were disappointed upon learning that the district was mandating the wearing of masks by all students before the state did not give you a choice. This took the decision from parents. These are our children, not the boards, not the teachers, not the administration, and certainly not the governments. I previously presented several studies, which I'm not going to put on you now, discouraging the use of masks. I would like to more appeal to your common sense and your reasoning. Do you really believe that for the past year, children have been masked up while hanging out together, playing recreational and club sports, going to parties, having sleepovers? I understand that some parents have chosen to make their children wear a mask around their friends, but I have not seen that in my own experience. It is not more dangerous for a child to be sitting in the classroom with the same children every single day than in a restaurant with 60 strangers or any of the other examples I just gave you. Kids in elementary school, especially K through 6, in a mask all day. It is common knowledge that these children, especially the younger ones, take social and learning cues from facial expression. How does this not matter anymore? Many of you have children. You should absolutely know by the end of the day how disgusting a mask is that your child is coming home in. What are we doing to them? To think that the parents who do not want their child masked up all day have some sort of death wish for our kids is not the case. We consider the risks with the mask versus the risks without them. For any age group, for this age group that has more of a chance of being killed on the way to school than a virus, it's an easy decision. We are assessing the risks. We understand that there are other parents who have a different analysis and a conclusion, and that is fine. That is why we're asking for parent choice. What is the end game? No COVID cases, or until every staff member and student is vaccinated and boosted and new vaccines and so on and so forth. With or without the mask, COVID is still going to be here. There will still be illness, there will still be death. Government officials at all levels have been pathetically inept in dealing with COVID. Why would you listen to them now? Many of you are parents. I know that deep down you know something isn't right. So lastly, I'll leave you with this. I'm sitting here tonight advocating not only for my children, but your children and all the children of this community. Can you say the same? Several school districts around New York State, either individually or as a county, have spoken up and advocated for the students they serve. Why hasn't Baldwinsville done the same?
The next speaker this evening is Jen and Frank Garcia in regards to mask choice.
Thank you for your time. I think we're all aware, we all agree that whether or not the governor actually has the authority to have a mask mandate around the state is being questioned. We had a level of courts that said masks may be mandated or not, but that should come from the legislative branch, not from the executive branch, which I kind of believe in. At the end of the day, our representatives locally in our districts represent us. I grew up in Long Island. All my school and education primary was in Long Island. I lived in Manhattan. I went to New York University, and I lived in New York City, and I've lived up here in this wonderful community since 2007. I can assure you, living in those three pieces in New York State, the cultures and norms of family life are very different. And that's why this should be legislated. It should not come from the hands of one person that does not have the authority to do so. This person turns to you and is willing to withhold state funding for our children? For our children. Think about that. We're all parents. That's how you would respond to this? Yet we are going to wait for this tyrant to release and allow and be the hero to take the masks off? We don't teach our children to be followers. Garcia children are leaders. Baldwinsville teaches our kids and tasks our kids with leadership. And sometimes leadership is doing what's unpopular. And it takes a big person and a strong person. Superintendent Thompson and the board, I'm asking you to be that leader. Let's not wait for her whim to lift the mask politically because every other state is doing it. Let's be the leader. Let's be that beacon of change. Beeville starts doing it. CNS does it, FM does it. She can withhold the funding of the entire state. I'm an accountant, I understand the importance of those funds. We have to do better for our children. One day, my kids will be filling out essays for their colleges. And perhaps one question is, name something that happened to you in an extraordinary event that has changed your life. And I hope my kids look down at that essay and they talk about the day they're bored and their superintendent defended them against popular belief, the unpopular decision, maybe even putting your job on the line. I understand that. All your positions on the line. But it's what's right for the children. Choice. That's all we ask for is choice. And that how that changes their life so that they're the leader. They're on the board for your grandkids maybe someday. And they make the right decision even if unpopular. That's what leadership is. We task our children in Beeville to be those folks. Why are we as adults not tasking ourselves to lift them up and help them? To be better than the government is treating our children. Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's right. He took all of my time, but I will leave you with this. It may be unpopular, and we have asked our children to be extraordinary for the last several years, and they have done that. And tonight, we are asking you to be extraordinary. And Mahatma Gandhi once said, Be the change you want to see in people, and tonight we are asking you to be our change. Thank you.
Carrie Rogers in regards to mandates.
Good evening. Oh, I'm nervous, sorry. I just wanted to start by saying thank you, each and every one of you. Your efforts and your communication during the past 2 years has been greatly appreciated, I really do. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak my thoughts this evening. So I'm a mother of 2 within the Baldwinsville district. One's a sophomore at Baker and the other a 7th grader at Ray. And both of them are involved in many school activities. So I myself work in healthcare, and I've seen this past year my own freedoms be completely stripped away. My freedom to work and my freedom of choice. The last line of the Star-Spangled Banner reads like this: "O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." And free being the key word that I want to dwell on. While my own freedoms have been stripped away this past year, I'm here to fight for and protect the freedom of my children. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "One has the moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws." And Martin Luther King Jr. fought for freedom. We celebrate him, but look around. We don't live the very freedom that he fought for. So I believe that masks are unjust. I believe social distancing is unjust. I believe quarantine orders for being exposed is unjust. I believe treating students differently based on vaccination status is unjust. I believe students having to miss events because of vaccination status is unjust. I believe vaccine mandates are completely unjust. I believe there are risks to wearing masks all day, every day. I believe there are risks to wearing masks while playing sports. I believe there are risks to wearing masks while playing instruments. And I believe there are risks for taking an experimental vaccine. And for every risk, there should be a choice, a choice. These mandates are harming our children psychologically and physically. And I ask, what are you going to do about it? Thank you.
Kristen Oderdunk, I believe, and again, please, apologies if I said your name incorrectly, in regards to masking.
And we also have Hollis Dial. I'm going to cede my time to Hollis, actually. We're sisters. Sorry? So it's Kristen Oderdunk
I
and
have-
Hollis Dial.
Okay, so I have 2 separate requests to speak. Are you both?
We're just going to sit with each other for support.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that Kristen's going to speak.
I'm
That's
ceding
okay.
my time to my sister, so pretend that we're a unit.
Okay.
Would that work for you?
I think it's supposed to be per person.
Okay, I'll start then. She's
Okay,
just here to
so
support
I'll
me.
just re-announce you then.
I don't need an announcement.
Okay,
That's
the
okay.
first speaker is Hollis Dial in regards to the mask mandate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry for the confusion.
We caused it. Thank you very much for your time this evening, everyone. I'm here tonight as a concerned parent, and my thoughts and opinions are my own sincere beliefs. I'm also an educator with 20 years teaching experience here in New York State. Teaching has allowed me the unique experience to firsthand experience what many of our children experience and what they've endured the past few years. I chose to speak tonight for one reason. I am unclear on this Board of Education's position on masking our children, and in the spirit of transparency, I feel as a community member I should be crystal clear on where this board stands on this topic. I respect and appreciate different opinions about masking in schools, and as an educator, this is one of the concepts that we teach children in terms of P2 traits called open-mindedness. That being said, I do not want my own children to spend one more day attempting to learn through a mask. To those of you that would say, it's not about your kids, we have to protect our teachers. I am a teacher. I'm an educator. I'm immune compromised. I was given access to vaccines and to booster shots well before my 72-year-old parents and well before my students. Shifting to a mask optional policy would allow teachers and families who feel the need to continue masking to do so. How fortunate I am as an educator that at any time I can choose to take a personal leave of absence should I feel my personal risks to working in a school far outweigh the benefits. It is not my students' job to protect me. To the educators who seem to find joy each day out of following our children around shouting at them to put their masks above their nose. To the teachers who divert from their curriculum to warn kids, and I quote, "You could kill my kids if you don't wear your mask," end quote. To the administrators who announce over the announcements, "Make sure you wear your mask properly," I urge you to reprioritize what your role is and to recognize how counterproductive it is to elevate fear and anxiety in our youth. Placing the burden of our health and safety on the backs of little people is so horrifyingly backwards, it's truly shocking that this is viewed as reasonable civic duty. It is my experience here, although this is my first time speaking, that when community members ask questions or pose inquiries to this district, we often receive a statement that sounds something like, "We have consulted our lawyers," or "We are bound by legal requirements." I'd like to ask you to consider changing your word choice from "we have to" "we choose to." School boards all across the state and all across the country have had to make similar decisions on behalf of their communities. Many have chosen to bravely work past the fear of lawsuits and have courageously and creatively advocated for positive changes for kids. Creativity and bravery, more P2 traits that we expect our students to emulate. If you are continually paralyzed in your decision-making out of fear of legal repercussions, then what purpose do you serve this community? To cite a few examples, on February 12th, Superintendent Mark Laurie spoke at a podium at Niagara Falls High School alongside his board and called for an end to the governor's school mask mandate. He publicly recognized the incongruence that exists for children to be allowed to enjoy their communities outside of school, only to return to school masked for 7 hours. On January 20th, the Massapequa Board of Education voted unanimously to end the mask mandate in all district schools effective February 21st. The Board of Education Vice President Janine Caramorton stated so eloquently, "We are making our children hate and fear school. It is time to be their voice and stand up for their constitutional rights." There are countless other examples of school districts in New York State, our very own state, choosing to be part of the solution to this issue. Is this district prepared to continue masking indefinitely and in the absence of data?
Were you two going to?
I'm concluding right now. Again, in the spirit of transparency, I will follow up with each of you personally to ask your stance on the mask mandate. It looks like there will be 3 potential openings to this board in June of 2022.
I don't mean to be rude, but I politely laid out the rules, and if we let you go, then we need to let you go.
As a community, we deserve to know if you are fighting for our children to live freely or choosing to stay on the sidelines, perpetuating an environment of fear. Thank you very much for your time.
You had 30 minutes. There was only 5 speakers.
Thank you.
I cede my 3 minutes to whoever would like to talk now, and I'll change the.
You had 30. You cut. This is the problem. You cut a parent.
That's
who's
okay. I'm
emotional.
done. Thank you.
Like when you had 30 minutes. If this was 30 minutes and you have an agenda, I understand it. You're 15 minutes early, unless you have other speakers. My apology. But if you don't have other speakers, you really cut a parent off. This is the problem. This is why parents are so frustrated. We understand the difficulty you're in. We understand, you got a governor threatening to pull funding, but be exceptional. Create the change. Be the leaders to our children. Our children look up to you.
Excuse me a second, sir. If you stick around for the leadership report, I have several updates.
Thank you.
And I would love to share that with the entire community.
Thank you.
And by no means, we're not trying to be rude by whatsoever. We're trying to stay consistent with the time frame. That's all. And again, I do have some updates that I think you would like to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think what was going on here is just trying to model. I was an educator, and I know you're an educator, and when you bend the rules for one of your students, then that just makes it very difficult to enforce the rules. I mean, is 3 minutes, and that's all that we ask. I mean, we do our very best. We do want to hear from everyone, and I've been responding to a lot of emails, and Superintendent Thompson does have a lot of the information you're seeking in the leadership report tonight.
And my opponent was only at 5 positives for mass choice. If you have a negative still to speak, I apologize. But everyone shared the same view. So my time that got cut at 3 minutes, or anyone's time that got cut at 3 minutes, we're more than happy to concede it to Hollis. So if you had someone that was against it, I totally understand 3 minutes a person, and you want to balance that. Totally understand. Thank you.
Kim, I don't know how many speakers we have. Is that it for tonight?
I believe so, with the one speaker, you.
Right, I could have actually
Okay.
handed her my paper.
So, you know what, I
for her
think
to
I will
finish.
take my time then. I will
Okay.
take my time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
great. Yeah.
So we do have one last speaker, Kristen Oderdum, in regards to masking.
Right.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, yeah, thank you. So in the spirit of why we're all here, we are all here for the community and for the children and for humanity. And so I'm gonna speak from my heart. I don't have anything written. As I was listening to my sister and some of the community members, I hear a lot of emotion. Can we all agree that we hear that? We feel it in our body. That's a gift. It's a strength, it's a stamina, and it's a capacity. And we live in a dual society that is both love and fear, yes? That comes with a lot of growth opportunity to turn our fears into the love that we are looking for to create in this world. We could quote any number of powerful leaders, and I can't wait to hear the report, truly. Because if one thing I think we could learn from all of this is that, and I'll say it, I don't know. And in the questions, we may find some answers. So we do have some strong thoughts on the subject, but I'm really excited to hear the things that we don't know, and the things, like, I don't know, well, I don't know. Let's start there, and let's start asking questions and being more transparent. So I didn't know that I couldn't automatically cede my time. I learned that, thank you. We may get somewhere if we start honoring that there's a bit of flexibility because the emotions are charged, right? Okay. So, do I have more time? Oh, 1 more minute. I'm gonna use all of my time. I really am. Something else I think that maybe we could all find some common ground in is that in the not knowing, we could all agree we're feeling more. Our kids are feeling more. I have a family of 5 kids that range from 34 to 13. Do the math on that demographic and let's get some real stats on the feelings that must move through my system of family that I hold. It's a lot. And we can agree that we're not going to agree on everything, but we do want to be sovereign beings in this world to caretake not only ourselves, but the people that we caretake with, the plants, the planet. I mean, we may have aliens here soon, and I'll leave it on that note, okay? So we have a big task at hand. Maybe we turn our fears into some massive love, and we make some leadership decisions that really change the world.
Thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. I usually say that after each speaker. It has been a very challenging time for all of us, and we are looking forward. This is the first opportunity that we've had as a board to discuss the issues and concerns that are being brought forward publicly. And I hope that everyone leaves here with, may not be the answers that you're looking for, but at least with answers, because uncertainty leads to a lot of anxiety. And face it, when we as adults are anxious, our kids feel it, and we want the best for our kids and for them to enjoy life the way we enjoyed it at their ages as well. So, moving on.
Hey, Jen.
Oh.
Okay, sorry, can I just interject for just 1 second? So, I think it's important that, that the families that did speak tonight, and I know we're gonna get to the roundtable discussion later on. We have a number of agenda items that we have in between, but there will be a discussion, I think, on this topic afterwards. So I don't wanna get into the roundtable now, but if there's, that'll be an opportunity for board members to speak. I know I have an opinion I'd like to share tonight. but we have to get through these other agenda items first. So I didn't want to, I think it's important to let you know that we're not ignoring you, moving on in the agenda, but there is an agenda that we try and stick to, and but we'll have an opportunity to share our opinions later.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9, resolve that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Tony first, I think, or no, Jeff first, Joan second. All in favor? Opposed? Passes. We have everyone here now? Oh, Denise, I forgot you're on.
I said aye.
Okay, 9-0. Does anyone, oh wait, did I just do this? Okay, does anyone have any questions?
I have a question in regards to some appointments of additional staff for federal funds for before school. Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you on?
It's instruction. Joe or Jason, can you fill us in with David? What, I understand that it's the COVID relief funds that are being used, but we haven't seen anything before for before school supervision. So what are those positions for, and what are they doing?
There it goes. The before school supervision is for, we have students that are dropped off early, and there's students that are there, and we have to have some staff that are flexing time to come in early to support that. So we do have we've had since the beginning of the year a group of staff who've done that. In some of the schools, they have reached out, and I have gotten one where they went from 45 students to now up to 90 students, and have asked and requested for more staff to support that. It's just really our current staff that's supporting those students early in the beginning of the day, because they can't necessarily flex their time and leave early. They're coming in early and doing those things.
What's the influx of students coming in that much earlier? I'm not understanding. Because
Parents dropping off kids, it's changed since the beginning of the year, the different numbers that people started and stopped, or
okay, I'm sorry.
I didn't understand because of quarantines and things like that, that
and
the bus
Jason just said
quarantine.
busing. Okay, I didn't understand that. Thank
Yes.
you.
In these individuals, it's pay as reported, so even though you're approving additional staff, it doesn't mean that those additional staff are working every day. So based on the needs, the building principals are assigning staff to do that work.
But for the before school supervision, that's just they're supervising, they're not providing any type of learning instruction. Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Oh, no, I just wanted to make sure you had all your questions answered. Okay. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0. Moving on to item 10, the reports. Superintendent Thompson will take that section. We'll be doing a lot of budget presentations and reviews this evening.
The first one up is the special education budget. Rocco, would you walk us through it, please? Thank you.
Sure. So there's been no changes made to the proposed special education budget from the initial presentation at the last Board of Education meeting. I believe there was an adjustment made on the summary page, but that wasn't the special education piece. That was on the administrative end, which affects the total budget summary. But as far as special education wise goes, there's been nothing that's been updated or changed, so I have nothing new to report on, and we'll just be here to answer any further questions.
Joe, it may be useful, since we have a much larger crowd than we had last time, just to at least have it up on the screen, especially since we asked comments or questions from the audience.
Any questions at all?
Does anyone on the board have any questions? Marco?
Rocco, can you just repeat what you said? Did you say, are there any changes from the last time, from the last meeting, when you went over the report with us?
Yeah, there's no changes in the special education budget proposal from the initial presentation that I gave at the first board meeting, or last board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you. What's that? Thanks everyone so much.
Thank you, Rocco. Rick?
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Let's do this thing. So facilities budget. We're asking for a little bit of an increase from last year. We'll run through the slides and kind of show you what we're looking to do and the reasons for that. So for salaries, the first two lines, there was a little bit of a change. I had been being paid out of a grant, so next year we are budgeting for me next year as a supervisor. Also, we have a line item in there. We used to have a custodial supervisor. We're still in talks with the district as far as how we want to proceed with that, whether we want to go with a custodial supervisor or some other ways of organizing my department, looking forward with that. The salary sub-clerical code, we hadn't had that before, so we did put in a code for that. Just whenever Tammy takes a day off or stuff, we're gonna pay it out of that specific code. The rest of the salaries are all contractual. Equipment. Those numbers are staying the same except for the equipment maintenance. We're upping that to 2,400. We're looking to purchase a specific piece of equipment, a jetter for our toilets. The one we have is old, it's heavy, so we're trying to get one that one man can move at one time. Kim, I'm not sure, did we skip over the $100,000 project?
We'll go back to it.
We'll go back to it? Okay. Contractually, some of our contractual numbers went up just due to the cost of things increasing. More we go through, everything's going up. Once we get to the supply side of the house, we'll talk about that a little bit as well. One thing that did go down was mobile devices. Went from 18,500 down to 12,000. We're just using, less staff members are using iPads or cell phones. They're using more of their own personal devices, so we were able to decrease that. Materials and supplies. Most of our supply codes we are increasing by small amounts, just based off of the increase in price of goods. We've been seeing that a lot this year. So we are reflecting that and moving forward, making small incremental increases just so we can keep pace with the cost of goods. And then for every year we do a $100,000 capital outlay project. We discussed this in our facilities meeting. What we're looking to do is Reynolds Elementary, their PA system is old, it's antiquated. We're looking to get that replaced. We can't even really get parts for the systems anymore, so we're starting our own phase out of what we have for PA systems, along with some site work over at Reynolds is what we're looking to do.
So the thing I would like to point out is this is gateable. and our building aid ratio is well over the 85 cents per dollar. So for every dollar we spend, we get that much aid back. So that's why it's important that we take advantage of this. This is a item that's a line item in our budget. We do talk about it in our budget brochure in regards to what the area is that we're focusing on. It does have to be in one building. And we have been doing these projects for a number of years. But this is a highly aidable category, and it makes sense to continue moving forward with these projects.
I don't have a question, Rick. That's over me, Matt. I don't have a question. I just want to commend you on really kind of keeping this budget increase minimal. I mean, considering you're adding a supervisor position in there, we're still just roughly over 2%. That's pretty commendable. I know everything costs more, so you're probably doing more with less next year, reality-wise. Thank you. I know a lot of industries have been hit by supply shortages and delays in supply chain, all that. Have you experienced that with getting stuff in for facilities?
It's the random stuff. Like, you don't know what it's gonna be until you don't have it, or you say it'll be here in 2 weeks, and then they say it's gonna be here in 5 months, and then you turn around and you find a different supplier who's charging $200 more for the same thing, and so we're dealing with it as it comes, but overall we're doing okay.
Have you built in much cushion for that, assuming it continues next year?
We built in some cushion, yes.
So one of our theories when building this budget is we are paying for some of the supplies that we're still incurring on the grant side of things through the COVID funds from the grant money versus our general fund money. For people that are in the audience, 2 different funds is how we have to code that in the district. So one of our goals, well, Tiffany and I were working with Rick on building this budget, is obviously those funds will not be available a couple years out. So we're trying to build in some of those increases so that we don't get caught down the road with that. And as far as helping with supply chain issues, that's one of the things that Tiffany works very closely with Rick on, and we really try to stay ahead of that. So some of the discussions right now with not knowing what the future holds for us is we're all of us in very close contact about when is it do we buy more things so we have it in stock so that we're not running out of things that we need. Definitely purchasing some different things still due to COVID, paper towels, things like that, cleaning supplies and whatnot. So a lot of thought went into it, and we're certainly trying to plan for tomorrow as well as the future in regards to our whole budget process.
Again, I just want to thank you for what you do for our students. I think we all know, and we've heard here tonight as well, that they have a lot on their plate. One of the things I don't think they do have on their plate is to worry about where they are physically. And honestly, appreciation to you and everybody in the department. Thank you.
Yeah, it means a lot to my guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
RJ, technology, please.
Hi, everybody. How do you like your new digs? Good? I knew Frank would like it. That's my TVs. I hit him bronze during a museum. Okay. So, looking at about a 3.5% increase in the technology budget. Most of it's on the salary side, it's contractual. We'll go through that, any changes. We look at the salary codes. There's where most of the increases come from on my side. And we didn't add or subtracted anyone. I think we've got a little different way we're handling the auditorium person. So that person's in there, which increased that budget. And that's the only standout that I can remember right now. Moving on to the equipment code, we're holding steady in the equipment code, no increase. Contractual, same there, holding steady. And the supplies, little bit of an increase for Derby. They're doing a lot of things with 3D printing over there in the media center and some STEM and STEAM stuff. So supplies are starting to cost a little bit more, so we bumped that up a little bit. And then the next bunch of codes there, that's our, our library codes. The 2610s are library codes, pretty much the same. We made a typo last budget and we shorted Reynolds like $3,000. We made it up to them during the year, but we made sure it was in the budget this year, so that's why that looks like it's raised up. And then the rest are our BOCES codes, and we really don't know what some of those services cost when we're doing the budget process. It comes out later, so what we do is we add 3% to all those codes and see where they come in. So all in all, like I said, it's about a 3.5%. Most of it's between the BOCES and the sailors. Love to take questions.
So a quick one for me. I mean, I imagine that we're probably going to see a lot more wear and tear on some of the Chromebooks and things like that going home and coming back to school. Is there still COVID relief funds that we can tap into to do hardware refresh that's not part of the general fund?
Well, what was really nice this year is I was able to do some other work, like with these nice new clear touch boards in all the classrooms using that funds. So now moving forward, I've got a good chunk of my lease now that I don't have to spend doing that kind of purchasing. So I'm pretty confident we're going to be, having a good amount of funding to take care of that stuff moving forward.
Did anything from the survey we did with the technology committee, did anything jump out there that you may need to add additional funding in the budget for?
Not so much in the budget, but I am going to take a good hard look. I'm very confident in the fidelity of our network backbone, but that's something you have to keep on top of. And so I'm going to be looking to use E-rate funding to make sure that we're totally refreshed all the time in our network backbone. And on the security side of that, I want to put some pieces in place to make sure that we've got all the intrusion detection that we should be having in the district. So.
You answered my question. I'm always asking about security.
I know you are.
I appreciate you.
And I'm always thinking
question.
about it.
I understand. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. You're welcome.
I won't piggyback on that because I'm back here. But when you talk about the network backbone itself, does that include Wi-Fi then for the buildings? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, RJ.
Hey, thank you all. Appreciate the support.
Just for you folks out there watching on the internet or here in our audience, you can find all this information on our board docs. And at any time, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or the corresponding supervisor. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions or any concerns that you may have. So, thank you. Yes, Kim, go ahead.
So this is a report that we've added, and to RJ's point in regards to the BOCES billing and how that's coming in right now, we did just get the final numbers hot off the press on Friday, so you'll start to see these updates. So what this is the budget development changes report, and this will continue to grow as we go through the actual rates for BOCES next year in regards to any other changes we have prior to the adoption. I think board members that have sat at the table for a while are familiar with this report. So right now, for example, workers' comp, we got our actual number for next year for what that would be. So that is showing an increase from our initial presentations that we did with our benefits. In addition to the medical insurance, we're showing a little bit of a decrease there. So this report will continue to grow throughout the budget process until budget adoption. Is there any questions about that?
Thanks, Kim. So this will lead into the leadership report. Kim, do you want to start us off with the tax cap discussion, please?
Sure. So every year we have to submit our tax cap calculation, And obviously, we keep in mind all of the things that we talk about throughout the entire budget process, which is really slide 2 about, you know, making sure we're achieving educational excellence, promoting collaboration, and opportunities and choice for all students in regards to the budget process as we go through this. So the tax levy cap is just that. We have a cap that we have to stay within. A lot of people think this cap is a 2% tax cap. That's not necessarily true. As we work through the formula, you will see that. So while we're planning the expenses, which we talk a lot about during budget process, we also need to be paying attention to our revenues, because when we go to the voters, we have to balance the expenses with the revenues of how we're going to pay for those things that we're budgeting. So as we look at this tax cap, that's a big part of our revenue coming in. This calculation takes into account our capital projects, and most people have heard us talk quite a bit about this with planning a capital project, that we need to maintain that local share of our debt being stable over time. So that's where our capital projects come into play, and our bus purchases are actually considered part of our capital as well. Those are a couple of things that we do have a small amount of control over in regards to the rest of the calculation that really is outside of our control, such as the tax-based growth factor, allowable growth factor, and the pilots. Those are payments in lieu of taxes that we have agreements with, not necessarily just us as the district, but also sometimes our county is a part of that process in regards to having some of those things approved. So really, this is the first year since the tax cap levy has been in place that we are actually exceeding the 2% in regards to inflation. I appreciate Joan mentioning Rick Timms in the presentation last Saturday, and that is something that I hope when the video comes out that we'll be able to share with the whole entire board. He had a lot of very positive things to talk about in regards to the state aid this year and what we probably see coming down the road, and I agree with what he was talking about, 110%. Tiffany and I had that discussion on Thursday and Friday, and then he was talking about it on Saturday. So we really need to keep planning for the future, and we need to take a look at making sure we maintain fiscal responsibility for our future beyond just the funds that are coming into us for COVID and some of the state aid reconciliation that's happening right now. So really, the tax cap this year is still being reduced, so to speak, if you really take into account the fact that inflation is 4% and not 2% this year, but we're still capped at 2%, even though all those other years we were below. So it's very interesting, and I think Rick Timms was actually speaking about there's going to be some advocacy efforts in regards to the fact that if this happens again with inflation being higher, how does that impact the tax cap, and is there stuff that we should be looking at to make changes? Not we as a whole, but our political partners. So when you take a look at this, the tax cap, this is a complicated formula, and it really starts out with your prior year tax levy, and then you see those things we were talking about, the growth factor is added into that, pilots. I still have this in draft format only because I have not submitted it to the state yet. So once we submit it to the state, I'll bring back the final calculation. We were still working with bond counsel up until the end of last week in regards to our pilots and how they would impact this calculation. So if you follow that across in the red, you see our capital tax levy from the prior year was $561,000 and change. That's really that local share that I was referring to previously. And then that allowable growth factor gets applied, our pilots get subtracted, and then you come up with this tax levy limit. And we had no carryover allowed. And then if you go down to the next row there, you can see that our capital tax levy is the 453. When you play that formula out, we're really looking at about a 2.25% increase on our tax levy next year according to our cap. Any questions so far? All right, so one of the other things I wanted to share with the board, and we talked about this a little bit last year when we were adopting the warrant, but I think it's very interesting in this district how things have happened before. So when we take a look at this chart, and this chart can be very overwhelming, basically what it is it's looking at our years, and the estimated is when we're going out this time of year with our budget, what we're anticipating the tax rate increase to be. What you see here is what we anticipate the tax rate increase to be, and what it actually ends up being over in the far right-hand corner is much different. And part of that is because of the way the tax warrant works and the property assessed values. And we know we've had a lot of growth in this district in regards to building, and also property reassessments are occurring and continue to occur. So one of the things that I was trying to reach out to our assessors with is to kind of understand what the split of that is. How much of our property assessment really is new property being built and that growth versus the reassessment piece. And I haven't been able to get that. If I do get any concrete information about that, I'll be sure to share it with the board. But it's a little bit more complicated than what it appears on the surface, and I haven't been able to determine that. So right now, if you take a look at this, we're looking at that 2.25% increase. And then where that comes in, again, will be more than likely lower than that when we're approving the tax warrant in August because of the growth in that property assessment. So this gets into a little bit about how the tax warrant is calculated. We present it in August, and that's basically based on the tax levy that's approved by the voters in May. The STAR deductions are sent to us by the state for the old STAR program. There's 2 STAR programs now. So if you've bought your house recently, you have to pay your full tax bill and then the state sends you a check, versus people that have owned their homes for a long time that you get that discount, so to speak, on your tax bill. Those funds that get discounted actually get sent directly to us from the state. But they're trying to move people over to the newer plan for cost saving purposes for the state, I believe. So the tax warrant, we have 3 towns. 3 towns collect our tax warrants for us annually. That's Van Buren, Lysander, and Clay. And one of the things that I'd like to point out is when you're looking at this calculation, 2 of our towns are fully assessed at a 1.0 when you look at the tax warrant, and the other one is assessed much lower. So, or the equalization is much lower, I'm sorry. So that impacts our calculation on the surface. So when we calculate that out on the tax warrant, we actually have to make an adjustment to account for that equalization rate being lower and making sure that everybody is, so to speak, at the same equalization rate to make things less complicated for the purposes of this conversation. And when we go through that tax warrant, I can go through the step-by-step information again with that. So really what we're looking at when we go back in history is our tax levy has been increasing over the years steadily, which we are fortunate for. And the other thing that we're very fortunate for is our assessed values have gone up significantly, which remember when on that slide where we go out with a certain number and then it comes in way less? This is why, because of how the calculation occurs and our assessed values have grown so much. And I anticipate this is going to continue to go up when we actually get those property values for this year. And that will not be until probably July that we'll actually know what we're pushing our tax levy over this year. And what that all does is impacts this tax rate per thousand. So when we take a look at the tax rate per thousand, if somebody's assessed value was to remain stable, which that's that's kind of like one of those experimental purposes, not reality purposes, I understand that, then the tax rate per thousand has actually declined over the past few years. And that is just because of the amount of growth that we've had, be it building or property assessment values. So just kind of wanted to give people a little bit of an overview to think a little bit more about how this impacts all of us and our community as we were talking about the tax cap calculation tonight. Any questions?
Maybe I'm doing the math wrong, but on the first slide, the tax cap calculation, just double check those numbers because I'm like $1.257 million lower from the math that was here, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something else in the calculation on this.
I think there is, Frank, and I only say that with confidence because I actually put the numbers into the comptroller's website, and I always check them in the comptroller's website in addition to these different formulas that we use. And in reading here, like parentheses, whatnot, there's a lot in here that if you'd like the more specifics, I'm sure we can go through it and help you understand. This is a template that Questar sends out in regards to putting the information out there, but I always check it in the website. That's the important place. Thank you.
again, that's an awful lot of information to digest in a short amount of time. And so again, to our community, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll be sure to get you the information. So I'm going to go into my report, and first and foremost, I just want to, as your superintendent, and as a dad of 3, I have twin boys and a little girl that's 11, and it's gone on for a long time. We've been living this, we've been living this personally as a school administrator and also as a dad. So I really sincerely thank you all for, I've had hundreds of emails over the past week or so, and I sincerely appreciate all of your thoughts, your passion, and you may not like this answer, okay? So the board does not decide that, mask or not to mask. I don't decide that. That's coming from the governor, that's coming from, just stay with me now,
No.
okay?
No. That's not an acceptable answer anymore. It's been 2 years.
I
1 year
understand.
too many.
I understand that.
We were all willing to do whatever you needed for
May
yours. We supported you. not
May I
fix the mess.
conclude my report, please? Thank you. So having said that, I appreciate everybody reaching out, both positive and negative. And I get it. We're all exhausted. So prior to the extension of the mask mandate, the Council of Superintendents across New York State has advocated for an off-boarding plan, which we have not heard what that plan is yet. And furthermore, our OCM BOCES superintendent group has also crafted a letter advocating to the governor, as well as the Department of Health, Mary Bassett, who oversees all of the nursing, and in the health department as well. And this was all prior to Governor Hochul's extension. We're asking for, what are the metrics? What does the off-boarding plan look like? We have not received an answer. But in the Department of Health meeting with Onondaga County, with Dr. Gupta, we feel that we're getting very close, that the Department of Health is feeling that they're getting very close with an off-ramping or an off-boarding plan. I don't have a crystal ball, but my feeling is it'll probably be somewhere in mid-March. But that's my best guess. And when that mandate is lifted, we have chatted, I haven't had an opportunity to speak with my board colleagues, but our administrative team, I want common sense to prevail, where if the mask mandate is lifted, it would be choice. So if you feel better wearing a mask, then that individual should wear a mask. If you don't feel that if you don't want to wear a mask, then you don't wear a mask. So that is the plan. That's what we're looking at implementing. Hopefully that will be coming sooner than later. And my feeling is that it will be coming soon. And just want to make sure I haven't missed anything here yet. So that is the plan that we're discussing at this point right now. I'm gonna go through my report, and I'm more than happy to speak afterwards, or if you want to call or email me, please do so. Moving on beyond COVID at this point, the academic quarterly update has been moved from our first board meeting to March 7th, and this was delayed due to COVID.
You really made us stay for an hour for that update. We all knew that update. We all read the paper. We all know that update. So the Beeville board will not fight for our kids. You are going to wait for Governor Hochul to do how we have to parent. You're going to wait for Governor Hochul to tell us how we need to parent our kids and protect our kids. And the Beeville School Board will, and you, Superintendent, will not protect our kids.
It's on me. It has nothing to do with the school board.
No, nothing?
No.
We're one of about 6 states that still haven't mandated.
And it's
Nothing.
only the kids.
Okay.
We're all at Wegmans. It's only the kids. Why are the kids suffering?
70,000 people at the Super Bowl last night. No masks. It's only the kids are the ones.
Yes, ma'am,
that
I
are
understand
being-
that.
So
We have to follow the rules because we're in the New York State Public
You're
School.
being led by a tyrant.
we want to send them all
It's
tomorrow
not doing
unmasked. Maybe they will. Maybe we will. Maybe all of us will band together and they will walk in that door unmasked.
Yeah.
And they are done. What are you gonna do? And you guys, it's not just the parents. You want the kids? We'll bring our kids the next meeting. We'll have them tell you. It's not like people are blaming the parents. You're putting this. The kids are fine. They're not fine.
I understand that.
They're hiding behind them. You know what our kids are telling us? They don't mind the masks. You know why they don't mind the masks? Because it hides their acne. You talk about self-confidence. This is the age our teenagers are developing self-confidence. The ability to come and do what us parents just did and speak before a room passionately. This is the age that they're developing that.
Yes, sir.
And there's some of them are telling us they don't mind the mask because it hides their acne. No one can see them. That's what you want out of the Beeville children. That's the leadership of this board. That's a Beeville alumni you want out in the world. Shame. Shame. Thank you
Why
for your
is it
time.
not the board's decision? That's my question.
Yeah, explain
Why is it not?
We are bound by New York State to follow the law and follow the government.
Is our board different than other districts in our county and in our state? Is our board held to higher standards? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not understanding the
So we
question.
have other districts that are making different choices, correct? Yes. Okay, so why is
Documented different
Baldwinsville
choices.
board holding itself to a different standard?
Can you give me examples?
Yep, right here. Thank you. Hang on.
While they're doing that, can I ask, we're gonna have a discussion amongst the board at our board roundtable. Can we move the
Yes,
board
sir.
roundtable up before we lose the audience so that we can have that discussion? That's just my suggestion because we're gonna have this discussion tonight. I just ask that we do it, I mean, now versus.
That's a question for the rest of the board, but I certainly don't have any problem doing that.
Yes.
I just anticipated that there would be questions for Superintendent Thompson and that conversation would just happen naturally here during the leadership report, which I sent out in response to that question about having it during roundtable. So I was anticipating on having that now.
Yeah, it just felt like we were moving on to other topics, so.
Vote on
That was one topic of
His entire
my
leadership
entire
report.
report, but
It just felt like we were losing the audience, so we should maybe
It does seem
focus
like a
on those
relevant
things.
topic. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
And I don't mind starting since I guess I brought it up, but.
No, that's fine. You
Okay.
can go ahead, but I think all of us,
Yeah,
have opinions on
yeah,
this
there's probably
and-
9 opinions on the board here, so. For sake, I mean, thank you for your update, and I understand we are obligated to, things that are mandated to us as far as the funding and all that. But I do advocate that, the mask optional thing, as soon as we can implement that. I do say my 2 concerns, and Mr. Garcia there kind of hinted at one of them is, we're gonna make them optional. I think it's on our administrators, on our teachers, all the staff, to make sure that those who choose to wear them are not singled out. But, my own high school students have mentioned that our kid's gonna get bullied now because they choose to wear one or their parents make them wear them. I think that's something we can address beforehand and say, it's no different than what you're wearing today or, other choices you make, your hair color, those things. It's another accessory they're wearing and they're choosing to wear that. So I think every administrator and teacher and all that need to be aware that there are gonna be some that choose to continue to wear it. My other is that a mask optional cannot be tied to vaccine status in any way because then we're just kind of marking them too. So those are my 2 main points that I wanted to bring up from my point of view. So with that, I'll hand it over.
I'll jump on. I totally agree with what you said, Jeff. I don't think you could have said it any better. I think Mrs. Garcia had the quote of the night for me, which is, we've asked our kids to be extraordinary for the last 2 years, and I think it's time for our leaders to be extraordinary. And I certainly side with that, and those words to me just really ring true. I mean, we're charged as a board to oversee curriculum development and empower our teachers and the administrators to do what's right for our kids. I think we've now gotten to the point as a society where this has run its course. The science is pretty clear. It's even more clear for me when I read articles in the famed New York Times and what the CDC's guidance is about cloth masks and speaking for myself, in my own opinion, it's face decoration. I don't think that the science supports now what we had thought 2 years ago. So certainly we're evolving, and I think it's up to our politicians and government to get on with it and let our kids get back to normal. I think I do agree with Jeff in that we will still have the choice, and I think it should be a choice for families. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, and I think that we as a community need to show respect for that choice. I do give our administration a lot of credit for keeping the schools open this year. We didn't go remote like other districts have, so I think that's the one challenge we had a year ago that we had to fight to keep the district open, so we deserve that gratitude for that. Now we've got another challenge, so it's how do we get our kids back on track and not lose a generation that we're already behind on. So good points, Jeff. I completely agree with what you said.
So this conversation hasn't been had as a full board, and I was curious to see where some of my board colleagues stand, and I also agree that it should be optional for our students. I think there's no one who understands the parents better than them. I agree. That is a concern, people pointing other students out for looking different, wearing different things. It is an issue that is something that the administration will have to tackle. I go back to just well over a year ago. I knew these didn't work, just my science classes in college. Microbiology, a cell of just a bacterial cell is way bigger than one virus particle. And then my economic botany class, all the holes in here are very porous material. It's right here, not around the face. It's been a very challenging time philosophically because I know everyone's in different places and there's people that may not agree with me. But our students need to be free, and I don't feel they're free right now. So when the governor lifts it, we haven't had that discussion, and obviously we need to abide by the rules, but at the same time there's a part of me that wants to say, let's be different. We support our superintendent, but he has a license as well that he could lose. And that's not okay because I'm very pleased with the work that he's done so far in his time here.
I'm going to talk about Jeff, Frank, and Jen, and I agree wholeheartedly. This should be a choice. One of the things that bothers me, and this is not our superintendent, this is more towards the governor. I keep hearing about off-ramping. Well, where was the off-ramping for the decision that, okay, if you're a public business, you don't have to have, okay, so I just off-ramped.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, and that's not a criticism for our superintendent at all. He's bound by this. He does have a license to protect, and we'd like to have a superintendent. It's kind of important. So, but I just don't understand why we keep having that conversation about off-ramping. It's a choice. We have the vaccination available for those who want it. We're not going to single out any students who either do or don't. But we need to further the discussion. We do need to be different. And by the way, I've read every single email that I've received from all of you and everybody else out there, and I appreciate them. I do. I don't respond to them all individually. We do have a policy as a board, but I have read every single one, and I thank you for that, and I thank you for being here tonight. I'm sorry, this is the first time some of you are seeing my face. So I apologize for that in advance as well, or not in advance, but so I've only been on the board for a short time, so this is the first time some of you are actually seeing my face. So I will always say we need to do better. As we know better, we do better, and we know better now. We do. So we need to do better. Thank you.
I'd like to also just echo what my other board colleagues have said. I definitely feel that it's time, and we have to do with what we're bound by, but understanding when that time comes, it is a choice, and I totally respect any parents or children's decision as to whether they mask or unmask. I just want to hope that with our administration and our teachers that there isn't that isolation of you're masked, you know, your mask police, make sure they're having it up, or, you know, you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. But I also respect people who choose to keep their children in masks. And that's what we're all about, is choice. And I just hope it comes a little bit sooner than later. And just what Tony had also said, I have received all of your emails that have been sent to the board, and we do not publicly respond. Our board president or Mr. Thompson responds. So I just want to let people know that we do read them, and we do understand, and we do care. And thank you for coming and sharing your support, and for getting these kids back to some type of normalcy.
I'm going to pretty much echo what my colleague said. I think that everyone who's going to get vaccinated has been vaccinated. Everyone who's going to get boosted has been boosted. And I think that it has been long enough now to where when the mandate is lifted, it'll be choice. We think it should be choice, I believe. And wear it if you want to wear it. If you don't want to wear it, don't wear it. But be respectful, as Jeff was saying, be respectful of each other. You never know why kids wearing a mask. Might have an underlying condition, something that could hurt him if he got something. So that's the reason why he's wearing it. They just don't feel comfortable not wearing it because it's been a while. So just be respectful, but I do feel that it is time for it to become choice once that decision is in our ballpark.
Hi, everybody. I'm gonna, did I interrupt somebody?
No, go ahead, Denise. You've been
All
so
right,
patient
but
over there.
I know, it's so odd that I'm virtual tonight, but it's unforeseen circumstances, so, you know, I'm an educator. I have 3 children in the district. It has been an incredibly difficult time for educators, for administrators, for superintendents, for students, families. And I kind of want to echo some of the things that I've heard. I've received your emails, and you know, it's just our policy that board president responds to them. And we usually talk about this sort of stuff about board roundtables. So thank you for your emails. We've read every single one of them. I, for one, echo everything that everyone has said. I absolutely believe in a mask. It should be optional. I hope to see some end to this, and we are bound, and I know people are frustrated and they want it to happen now, but you know, like everybody has said, we are bound. We have to follow certain rules, but as soon as the opportunity arises, I mean, you've basically heard from so many of us already that we support what you're saying, and we would like to see it be optional. And I just wanted to end with one thing. You know, this is my 3rd year on the board, and it has been, I mean, this is a volunteer position, but I have to tell you, the amount of hours that myself and board colleagues put into this, I mean, it's just been, I don't think that anyone has probably worked this hard over the past 3 years. So we're doing everything that we possibly can for our families, your families, for all the students in our district. So I hope that you all realize that. And thank you so much for coming tonight.
I have a freshman in college and a junior at Baker. We are all tired of wearing masks, but we do it because that is what we need to do right now. I'm also in favor of having that be a choice. I don't think that's the end of the debate, because I don't think that contact and quarantine guidelines are going to change after that. So I suspect when we make a decision, and it sounds like we're in favor of that, that masks become a choice, we'll see an increase in quarantines and isolations. So I think that will be the next discussion.
No.
Oh, this is one of these things I get started on when my kids call me because I get so frustrated. I definitely have felt for quite a while that the mask should have been optional. It's all I keep saying is just stop the madness. I also felt that we were testing too much. I think everybody was short of test kits. Do we test for flu? Do we test for cold? You know? So I very much think that we should be going choice as soon as possible, and I'm hoping we're ready for that. Because even though Jay Verona says we have to redo our reopening plan and resubmit it, I say as soon as they tell you that you can do it, you do it, whether you send in the plan or not. You know, it's crazy. They have violated so many laws and so many freedoms through this whole pandemic, and don't ever get me started on Dr. Fauci.
Okay, so
Joan, are you done? Keely, I'm not sure if you wanted to share student perspective tonight. You don't have to if you don't want to, but you're living this every single day, and whatever your opinion is, we completely respect it, so don't be afraid.
I've typed some things out here. I just said, my place on this board is to give a student perspective, and while I watch people and parents sit in front of us and tell us about the students and children's point of view, I feel like I should give my perspective as well. As a senior at Baker High School, my sister being a second grader at McNamara, first I'd like to say that I definitely agree that dealing with COVID has affected many people's mental health, but I see that more as an isolation thing, which of course goes hand in hand with this. But because of this, I am extremely grateful to be able to go to school and participate in activities again. I personally am not an online learner, so I'm very grateful that we get to be in person again. And I know this isn't everybody's perspective, obviously, but my perspective is that if wearing a mask means that I get to be at school in person and participate in extracurriculars and be able to go to college in person in the fall, then I am very okay with that. Given that, I do agree that masks should be optional once we know for sure that it's safe, and at this point I think that once we know that that's possible, that that's a good path to go on. I also just wanted to say that, you know, at the beginning of the public speaking portion, the rules are read out, and I just think that seeing parents maybe not so much following the rules is kind of hard to see. Things like following rules, taking turns, wearing your mask are expected of our K-12 students, and I think they should be expected of parents too. I understand that these are very important and passionate topics, and I appreciate hearing these perspectives. I just wish that maybe we could be more organized about it. I don't share my perspective often, but I think that this is really important and that having that student perspective might be useful. I also just like to say that I'm grateful for the people that are sitting here, because this is a difficult thing for the people on that side of the table, but it's a difficult thing for this group too. And a lot of things get put on the board that, again, I mean, like Superintendent said, it's not always something that's somebody here can fix, and so they are trying their best, and I just hope that we can all be more patient and, you know, hope that that option becomes a thing soon.
Thank you, Katie. So if everyone's set, we'll let Superintendent Thompson continue.
Well, what about the fact that other superintendents are instructing their staff to not harass kids about masks? That's not violating the mandates, but they're not walking around threatening kids with referrals for improper mask wear. Why can't we do that?
Could you please set up a time to meet with me?
I've emailed many times. Sure,
Sometimes
I'd love to.
Awesome, thank you. Sometimes it's you know, the message gets lost in an email. I would prefer to meet one-on-one if possible.
Is it something that you'd be willing to record so that we can share it with the groups?
You can certainly share it out, that's for sure.
Can you answer the question of why other districts are taking, do feel that it is within their power to make decisions and to speak to this issue?
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Can you speak to the fact of why other districts are taking a different interpretation perhaps on the power or the
Sure.
decision making?
I can't speak for what other districts are doing. I'm in charge of
But you said that
Beeville.
you wanted us to understand that it wasn't within your power.
Right.
But yet, if we lived in a different district, other boards are saying that it's within their power. So that's confusing, right? I'm just
Right.
asking that question.
No.
What is the legal or what is the thought process that is coming to the board who basically all are saying that we agree on this choice? Why are we then landing on a paradigm that prevents us to act upon our desire there?
Sure, and I, you know, we can, semantics of whether it's harassing or enforcing.
I'm not specifically talking to, I'm sorry, I'm not specifically talking to, I'm saying, when you started this portion of the leadership,
Yes, ma'am.
I thought I heard you say that please understand that it is not the board's, within the board's power to make these decisions.
Correct.
Because the government does it. So, but we in the community seem to be hearing that other districts are taking a different tack, right? They are saying
Sure.
that it is within their power.
And my interpretation is that it's not.
Where are you drawing your information to make that decision? And are you willing to come to shift with what your constituents on this panel are saying they would like and what the community is saying?
Yeah, and I believe I stated that from the beginning when I started my report, that once the time comes, once the mandate has been removed.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm saying now.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
It's okay, I'm trying to be clearer. There are other districts that are taking a different stance on this issue, correct?
Yes, Oakfield. Right here. Oakfield superintendent sent a letter that we were at a boiling point, was the words used, and it's about to spill over. And that the job of teachers and educators is to teach and educate our children. That is their first and foremost job.
Yes, ma'am.
To keep them safe and educate them. But it is not up to them to decide that the mask is or isn't safe. So, given that, if a child comes in masked or it's under their nose, he has instructed his staff to not address the child about the proper wearing of a mask and to continue to educate our kids. So that's the question.
Some districts are saying that they do have the power to say that this is what our community wants. I mean, I think even in West End, there are other districts, or other people mentioned other districts. I think we have maybe some information to provide. Are you willing to at least look at that information? And would you
Absolutely.
be a voice for the other people of on this panel that overwhelmingly are saying what we as a community want from you? And we want to respect, we don't want to lose you. Will you hear that?
Absolutely.
And be that voice?
Absolutely. And again, this is a very charged, passionate topic, and we're just as tired as the community, and we're doing our very best to preserve in-person learning. And again, I just want to reiterate that as soon as it's lifted, our intentions are to.
No, but we're asking you to take this information now. We want to empower you.
Yeah. What would happen
Don't
if
wait
you
for
lifted
her.
the masks tomorrow?
Yeah.
What would happen? I heard your license might be pulled. Totally respect that can't happen.
Will that happen?
Will it happen?
Will it happen?
Well,
Could happen. And obviously the state
That's
funding
a-
what would happen if you lift the mask?
Yeah, that's an expensive question, right?
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
And if you go back to the guidance, and Joe, please help me if I'm interpreting this correctly, but that we were subject to fines if we're not following the proper procedures and the mandates in place. So I have a fiduciary responsibility too, to protect ourselves and our community from litigation, because there's a number of people that are just as passionate as you are to have them removed, but in the same breath, you've got some people that are very passionate about keeping that in place. So it is a balance, and I'm more than happy to take that information. So yes, please.
So, yeah, so to the
Yeah,
point,
yes, please.
So from the legal standpoint, we will give you that information, and you will feel empowered by the community's response, and the people that aren't here, I don't know where they stand, but your
Yes, ma'am.
board is overwhelmingly saying that we want that.
Right.
Okay.
And what do you want us to do?
Yeah, what
We're
can
here
we do?
yelling
How
out
can
of
we help
frustration,
you? Yeah,
not
how
at
can
you
we
guys,
help
we
you?
understand the difficulty. If you want us and our children on Albany's doorstep tomorrow for the rest of the week, we'll take the time off work, our kids are worth it.
No, and
Okay?
I
That would help you to empower you, to sit there.
Yes, sir.
They're doing this thing with the trucks in Canada. Do we need to do that? Not with trucks, but do we need to stand on Albany's doorstep? We'll do it, we'll help, let us help you. But
no,
we gotta know
and
what it
that's
is.
and that's, you know.
Because what we're saying is, as opposed to waiting
about the
for
county?
what the governor says, we're asking you to be the change and to go and say that this is what our community wants and to make the change as opposed to wait to see what
Sure.
she says.
We know when we wait for government, you're gonna be waiting well past March, let's be honest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're gonna wait till the next election cycle, and that's when it's gonna come off. That's what's happening all over the country. So we don't wanna wait till next November, or October, or September for these to come off, start next year with masks again. You know, it's difficult. They said sometimes the unpopular decision is the right decision. I don't want you to lose your license, obviously, we love you over here. I don't want you board guys to get, folks to get in trouble. So what can we do? We all collectively sound like we agree.
Yeah.
We want it now, you guys want to wait for the governor. How do we come together? How do we help
It's not necessarily that we don't want it now. We're following what we're being told that we need to do.
And it's a daily fine? What's the daily fine, $10,000?
I think it's, Joe, was it 3,000 per individual?
How are they gonna police that? How are they gonna police
I
that? We can't police
I understand that, but I'm not willing to take that risk.
But we have to be brave, we have to start to, I mean, to the children that we bear the responsibility to raise, there are times in our country, in our world, that we do need to break rules, or at least speak to these changes to make changes. And I'm not suggesting anarchy, but you see how these rules have kept us in a disconnect of communication. I mean, we've emailed, and there's this policy. Communication is listening and talking and action. So if we email you and you don't even respond because that's a policy, there's a lack of communication on a fundamental level.
I've responded, I take a lot of pride in responding to every email.
I'm not saying you don't.
Yeah.
The other members of the board say that they can't because there's a policy that prevents them from actually responding and communicating to the people emailing them. I mean, these are the kind of rules that we absolutely want our kids to say, that doesn't really make sense. Maybe that's keeping us in a box.
Right.
So how can we?
How
can we help you?
In a lot of my correspondence, and maybe some of you have received that, you know, really it needs to go to our local legislators, our local assemblymen and women, senators.
But we're not allowing that, because right now the executive branch has the authority, the so-called authority, which already one court says they don't.
Right.
It's got to be legislated. And we're basically falling in line to a tyrant who's taking power she doesn't have. They took away the emergency protocol from Cuomo.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so she doesn't have it. She's got to be authorized to get emergency use. She doesn't have it. As far as I'm concerned, the mask mandate is not constitutional from her. If the legislature wants to vote for her, that's a whole other ball of wax, and then we could vote in or out our legislators. And that, to me, to my earlier point, is yes, that's what I want. I want a legislator in my district so that represents Liverpool, Beeville, FM. And I think the majority of folks here are tired of masks. It sounds like all you are tired of masks. And we've put the right people in, and masks should have never even came in play in the first place.
Yeah.
We have someone that doesn't have authority, and we're following them like sheep.
Yeah.
And then that's what's sad for us. And we're asking our kids not to be sheep in life. I tell my kids, I say, well, what if someone's getting bullied in the hallway? What you guys are telling me is, well, walk right by, you know the rules. You know, but what I'm telling my kids is you help the weak. You help someone that's getting bullied. You don't have to throw a fist. You break it up. And you know, sometimes that's unpopular. Someday my kids are going to face drugs at a party. And you know, I hope they say, no, it's one thing that my parents say, absolutely not. And you know what? They're going to be called a wimp and this and that. And that's not a popular decision, but that's how we're raising our kids. Viva la Academia, that's how you raise it. That's how you're teaching our kids to be leaders, future board members, future representatives, maybe the future governor. But we're not leading by example. Basically, we're going to raise a generation of sheep that are going to walk out and, oh, the government tells me what to do. We don't want that. You don't want that. We just want choice. We're not telling people not to wear masks. We want the personal decision to make as family per family to make the choice whether or not. And these kids are getting, so on the other side of the bullying market, our kids are being called unselfish. I'm sorry, selfish. You could kill someone.
They're scared. They're
You could, how can we do it? Kill someone for what? For falling in line for 2 years wearing a mask? Many of our kids have been vaccinated, okay? Or doing what they want to do as a decision as a family unit, and we're selfish. They're the most unselfish. The only thing a child knows is their friendships stripped away, as we were doing jigsaw puzzles for 2 months in our house, okay? Sports, stripped away. Theater, stripped away, okay? Everything they know was stripped away.
Mr.
And we
Garcia,
haven't given it back ratably. At least the last year, these should be gone.
I don't disagree with you. It aches my heart that
So what
our
can we
children
do?
have
What can
lost
we
out
do?
on this. And I'm, just for the sake of time, because these are all volunteer positions and we still have an agenda to get through. Please don't take that, I don't mean that to come across as rude by any means. And please get that information, and I appreciate that. And please set up, you can always, I truly have an open door policy. So please come see me, please call me, please email me, and we'll work together to come up with a solution.
So just so we're clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Does the county's choice override the state's choice?
No.
If our county says it? So we are literally at the hands of somebody that doesn't have the powers. So just to be clear, if
Yes,
the county,
ma'am.
if the county says that they're gonna go against it,
This
they'll
is
listen
an
to them.
executive order from the governor.
She has no right to have that as a
And that's not for me to decide.
And
You're
we're now
asking
one
us
of
to-
6 states now, or 6 states out of the whole United States. You can go, we went to Ohio last weekend, open, those kids haven't been wearing masks ever.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
that's so frustrating.
I-
So like,
I-
we live in the wrong state, like, I mean, it's hard.
The state of Delaware,
It's
the
hard. If I go to
president's own
Ohio, my
state,
kids don't have
is
to wear a
voting it out
mask.
today.
Yeah.
You're asking us to reach out to our legislators, which just about every single one of us in this room has done.
Okay.
Have you, as a district, done that? Because your voice as a school district means something.
That's-
My
this
little
is-
voice doesn't mean anything.
This is what I was trying to articulate.
I know, and I saw that because you sent that to a family member of mine in response to her email. But here's the thing, you're jumping on board with that. Where is yours specifically from this school district?
It's not jumping on board. It was.
It
It's power numbers, right?
It is, but your voice secondary would mean something as well.
And we, as a administrative, or excuse me, a superintendent group at OC and BOCES did the same thing as well, because we all feel the same. So again, it's empowerment.
Are you gonna release that information to the community? Because I only saw that because that was your response in an email.
Yeah.
No one else knew about
Actually,
that.
my name's the first name on the OCM.
Which is great,
BOCES, yeah.
that's fantastic. But I
I'm just
really
answering your
hope
question.
that you would release that information to the community as a whole, not
Sure.
just in response to someone's email.
Mhm.
Exactly, no one in this room has seen that.
I haven't seen that.
I'm
I
privy
would
to
be
that because
interested
you responded to a
in seeing
family
that.
member.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we include that information in the Friday letter that you send out to the
Yeah.
families?
That would be
More than happy to. And again, I don't mean to be rude. You know, we're. No, no.
And I got kids to tuck in, so thank
And
you.
I appreciate everybody's comments and passion, and please reach out to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all, board members and superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other topics for roundtable?
Well, I'm not sure if you've actually technically finished your leadership report. I'm not sure if you covered everything.
Almost there. So the academic quarterly update, and we're moving that to March 7th because of the delay with COVID, unfortunately. And we will get all of the information uploaded. And again, we're getting very close with having the data dashboard live from the first quarter, and we'll be updating that with the second quarter. That'll be forthcoming. The other thing I was wondering is, would it be worthwhile, and Joan, to your point of the NISBA, the information guide, and the actual recording, I'm going to include that in the Friday letter. I'm wondering, and I need to talk with our team on this, but maybe this would be something worthwhile posting on our webpage as a resource for documents for parents to take a peek at.
Yeah, you probably need to check with NISBA on if that's public, can be published publicly outside of their organization.
It's a good point, Matt. I'll look into that.
And Joan, you said that link to watch the recording of it is being made available or is available?
This link was sent out today. There's a link also for your framework that was sent out by CNY yesterday.
I'm talking about the curriculum.
Yeah.
That link came out this afternoon to everyone.
Okay, good. I wasn't able to attend.
Well, actually, you know what? Actually, I was just
going
gonna say, I think it went to just those who attended. Which usually, don't they eventually send out the free webinars to all members?
They said it would be made available to everybody, or
Usually
maybe
they
somebody in
do.
this room said that, but I was hoping for that since I wasn't able to attend the live session. So. Somebody gets a link if they could send it.
Sorry about that. The next, Joe, could you pull up the quarantine options services that we're providing? And I believe you all had that in the Friday letter. Was it last week? Previous? It's all blending into one. But I'm certainly not going to read down through each one, but there are certain things that we are working on and providing for our students, and we've jotted down some brainstorming ideas of, if this continues to go on, how can we do a good job better? And there's some ideas that have cost to the district. There are some options that do not have cost, and there are options that do have cost. So I don't know if you wanted to think on that, and then maybe email me back some thoughts.
Jason,
Yes, ma'am.
I had some thoughts that I just wanted to share. So first off, thank you guys for putting this together after our last meeting. So basically, I kind of asked for this information because we've been getting emails, and we had a family come to our meeting to talk about support of quarantine students. When I was looking through the list, it looks like we have a ton of support for when students return from quarantine. And looking at your additional ideas, I just wanted to say to you and to the cabinet that as a board member, I know that some of these have additional costs, but that's kind of the thought behind the COVID funds, right? So I, for one, and I'll just speak for myself, don't mind that there's an additional cost to support some of our students. And I know that you guys kind of decide the how, but I just wanted to say that I liked the additional idea of having somebody available during the school day for when kids are quarantined at home. Because there doesn't seem to be a consistent support for those students right now, because it's kind of dependent on what course you're taking. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thanks, Denise. The challenge that we're, Joe and I have spoken at length about this, and it's certainly not an excuse. And you could hear how tired everybody is, right? In regards to teachers, certainly I know, I'm singing to the choir with you, Denise, because you live it every day. We still, the reality is the challenge of finding bodies in order to fulfill some of these positions. Lack of substitutes, lack of aides, there's just not the manpower available at this point. But that will not hold us back from exploring some of these options. But that is a sobering reality of, bus driver shortages, substitute teachers, and that's just hard, cold fact. So, but having said that, if we decide on an option, we'll certainly explore it. So I just want to throw that out there.
So
I'm not sure what option would be the best, but I'm with Denise. The cost at this point doesn't bother me. We got the COVID relief funds, and I think the district has done a good job of supporting our students with social emotional learning and providing additional opportunities to make our kids feel more connected to school. I'd like to see, some academic support to help close those gaps and support the kids when they're not in school, because some of these kids have had multiple quarantines back to back, and it's hard enough when you miss like 2 or 3 day spans. Some of these kids are missing very large spans where they're pretty much getting themselves into holes that they can't get out of. And it's, I know the teachers are really tired, and like going into the Google Drive, it's almost like they're self-teaching, and it's very difficult for some kids with their full schedules to find time during the day or even after school to get the instruction that they would have missed because they can't figure things out for themselves, especially when they get to the upper level classes that are more complicated.
I just wanted to say as well, the additional cost at this point, I was actually going to ask why it was even put in there, because we've been asking all along, what can we do for our students, what can we do for our teachers to help our students? And I'm not trying to criticize, but these support or suggestions or ideas, majority of them require teachers that are currently in the district or substitute teachers, and week after week we keep on hearing that there's no teachers, there's no substitutes. So even though I appreciate you guys, I just feel like putting this together, coming up with these ideas, it's really not that, they're not valid supports to me. I don't understand that.
It's a staffing issue, whether it's our current employees or this substitute lists are short.
So I just want to say, so I trust that you'll kind of go back and speak to the individual schools, because the individual schools might have different needs. And I hear what you're saying with shortages. And I don't even know if this is a possibility, but there's so many like even volunteers or retired teachers, or I don't know if that's a possibility, but I trust that you guys are gonna go back and talk some more about it, and we'll go from there.
We will.
I think when we started talking about this, if there was any consideration for putting together like best practices, kind of a list of ideas. We don't want to tell them how to teach, but at least, that we're in a whole new world now. Have we come up with like that best practices list of providing to teachers, like here's things that we found successful for, helping kids that are in quarantine, if you find some ideas on here that work for you or you could implement, you know, has there been any progress with that type of?
There's been several discussions, you know, with the teachers union, and Joe can certainly weigh in on this as well if you would like. But we're kicking around all kinds of different ideas and trying to work in tandem with the union.
Now, I would just add that we set out at the beginning of the school year and also utilized last year how to provide you know, the most effective instruction online. So for these students that are out, so that document was reshared with staff both at the beginning of the school year, and again, we continue to have those conversations with staff. So I feel like staff, you know, they've ultimately been encouraged what to do, and again, there is autonomy, and teachers have choice based on what they feel is most appropriate for their students. They know their students best, they know where they're at and what they need them to do, and so they're making those decisions.
I guess just follow up on that. I mean, what I heard from, say, the Leetons and others is we're not necessarily doing it well all the time, and we've learned a lot over the last, you know, I appreciate it went out at the beginning of the school year. We've learned a lot and found things that work and things that don't work. And when we find things that work really well, are we then feeding that back to teachers and saying, hey, why don't you try this? This seems to work over here. Maybe you can try this, and it's something they haven't thought of. You know, just giving ideas of things that are working great, and maybe things we suggested at the beginning of the year that don't seem to be working, we're, you know, advising them, yeah, probably don't go it that way. It's not the best way to do it. So just that continual learning curve of how to deal with this and help. So
No, the principals, I mean, in department meetings, there are conversations that take place, and that's really the purpose of those meetings, is for teachers to share what's working and what's not working. Certainly when they're at team meetings, they do the exact same thing. And I would just remind everyone too, if we know that there are cases, it's important for families to reach out to the teacher. If they're not satisfied, reach out to the building principal so that we can address those that maybe are not doing what they're expected to be doing.
And just to tack on, I agree. I think, you know, we do hear it over and over again as board members that, you know, there are cases. So in that example, how do we as a board get that feedback from those best practices that are being shared? And can we get some insight into that? How often are those meetings happening? Are learning coaches stepping in to help out and take some of the burden off these teachers that have a lot going on to help those students that are out? I agree. I think we're focused a lot more on once the kids are back in the classroom to get them caught up. But we've heard time and time again, and I'll invoke the Leetons as well. That's a great example of where on several occasions, one of their children has not received what they would describe as adequate instruction, and that feedback has been given, and we're kind of on this hamster wheel a little bit where we're not. I understand what's here, and I appreciate that everybody's trying to do the best that they can, but we're giving you concrete examples of where things are broken and we're not getting any closer to solutions.
We'll certainly, again, Frank, will certainly, and to Denise's point, reach out to the buildings and, again, continue to work with the teachers union and try to get closer and try to do things better. I know that kind of sounds like lip service right now, but we're certainly working on it, and we'll continue to work hard on it. Thank you. Test to stay. That was a popular catchphrase. I don't say catchphrase, but so as far as test to stay is concerned, it did take a long time to get the individual lab license. We have obtained that. We have the licenses, and we have a number of kits, plenty of kits. And I'm not going to debate whether we've tested too much or not enough, or again, we're following what we need to be doing. I guess that's a better way to say it, rather than being doing what we're told. But we're doing what we should be doing. The Test to Stay program, we're working on the rollout, and I anticipate we'll have that rollout after the end of, at the end of the break. And what I do want to make sure I stress is that we have plenty of test kits for all of our students and all of our staff. And for parents out there that would like a test, please just contact the building principal and or their school nurse. And we'll follow the protocol and procedures. And to Jeff's point, who knows what the numbers are going to do. We don't have a crystal ball. We can hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
Can you remind us, and maybe the listeners at home, what does Test to Stay imply?
Well, it's not a simple, straightforward, but the basis is it's a program for students and staff who are not up to date on their vaccinations and able to attend school or work by following the exposure flow chart, as long as they don't have symptoms. So they can essentially test out. So that's the test out to stay in. And again, we'll be sending out correspondence of specifically what that is to all the parents and staff and of course the board. Shared decision making, we have Joan and Jen. Strategic planning, we have Joan, Jen, and Frank. We're certainly more than happy to accommodate the virtual request. So that will not be an issue at all. Thank you. And then Code of Conduct, we have Joan and Michelle. And just as a reminder, the reorganization meeting will be July 11th at 2022. The Hive will be coming out the first week of March. And we had a data meeting with the elementary principals and trying to determine what their needs are, what they need as far as staffing is concerned. We met for, Jeepers Joe, what was it? Like 8:30 to 1 or 2. But we spent an awful lot of time going through data. And again, we're trying to determine what they need for supports, whether it's professional development, whether it's more mental health support. So we're really working through that, and I'm certainly going to be meeting with each individual building principal. And again, we met as a group, but I'm asking them to lean on one another, and maybe one does a certain has a certain approach that works best for them. The point is to do some best practice sharing and trying to pull the elementary principles together. And Frank, I loved your idea of the action item list, and that goes back to the January 24th board meeting. And some of the action items that we had discussed at that meeting was the building visit for board members, and I believe that survey has gone out. The agenda for goal setting meeting, we completed that and shared that. Support for students out on COVID quarantine, and that's the document that we just went through. And ideas for additional support, again, that was on that document as well. And things are changing so much, in such a short amount of time. And again, I really feel I can palpate the frustration of the community. And at the end of the day, the people that are suffering the most are our children. And we're really trying to do the very best that we can. And I can't thank our teachers, our TAs, our support staff, everybody pulling together. Everybody is exhausted of this COVID train that we've been on. And I just ask everybody to hang on and support one another. And we will get through this. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. We just hope that it's a little brighter and not further away. but and I know you as board members have been having a lot of emails and correspondence and frustrations, and you don't get paid to do this, and but you're getting paid with with your hearts and seeing the difference that we're making for our children, and I can't thank you enough for your opinions and your vantage point, and I really think it brought it home, and I just want to say I'm proud of you for sharing that, and you said it very eloquent, and you said it spot on, so I really appreciate that. And for there, I'll stop talking because I'll just keep going all night long. Any questions for me?
No, I just want to say thank you. And we talk frequently. The communication's good, and we're sharing everything with the board. But I know that you've had a lot of challenges in the meetings, and it's nonstop. And I think what we're seeing on the board is you saw a lot of the emails come in this weekend, and people reaching out along the way. There's really the uptick is there in the community. Everyone's tired, and I think the most heartbreaking thing was that email that we received, the first email from a student, and that one was that one I sat there for a long time trying to figure out the best way to respond, because your heart breaks for them because they just want to go back to normal, and everyone wants them to have the same opportunities and have everything go back the way it was, and everyone's tired. The teachers are tired. Everyone is tired, but yes, they're the ones, and I know that weighs on you because everything's funneling through you, and we thank you for your dedication and your ability to listen to everyone and what you did tonight. I know what the response wasn't what the community may have wanted, but you truly do have an open door policy.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate that because that's additional time out of your day.
It's our team, so I appreciate that. So thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, moving on to item E. It's a first reading, and item F. And Joe, if you can just share.
Yep, real quick. So these trips are funded through Booster Club dollars. There's no cost to the district. And one of the things, there was clarification at the agenda planning. We added the room configuration for the softball trip. The expectation at this point, in the past, students used to have, student athletes or anybody participating would share, would be 4 to a room. So we've made a point to make sure that it's communicated to all coaches and anybody that's taking students on any overnight trip that it's 1 student per bed. So basically, in this case, it does list 3 students, but the room is a suite, so there's the ability to have more students in the room, but they all have their own bed. So those will appear for final reading at the next meeting.
If I remember, looking at it from before, it was Booster Club contribution and individual contribution. Is that correct?
Yeah. So in the case of softball, because that's the larger trip, it does break out a student cost. But when you read through the information, when the students start the program, the Booster Club, if their organization's raising the money and doing the fundraising, there's an individual account or at least documentation set aside for each student athlete. So they've broken it down to show you what the cost is for each student, but it's covered through their individual accounts with the Booster Club.
The information tapped down is definitely very thorough, more detailed than I remember, so thank you for communicating that to the advisors. Just on the softball field trip, because I want to make sure we're approving things that are accurate. It says that they're staying in one place on the traditional form, but then the additional attachments have a different location listed. So for the second reading, if we can just have that corrected as to which location they're going to be. One I think says Captain's Quarters, and the other one says Grand Cayman something.
Yeah, when they initially put this as the Grand Cayman, that's the one that was attached to the, with the update, with the floor layout. But I'll verify that.
Okay, no, I'm just saying it's different in 2 different spots, so just make sure
Yep.
it's consistent all the way through when we take action on it at the next meeting. And then, was there another field trip, Joe?
Yep, the lacrosse, that one is a trip to Boston Spa, and it's fully covered by the boosters. The only student cost is additional, spending money.
Well, a second meeting at the next meeting and take action on that.
Correct.
Anyone have any questions on either of those field trips or overnight sporting competitions? Okay, so moving on to new business. Resolved that the Board of Education approve the SECRA resolution for the 2022 capital improvement project pursuant to attached. Can I have a motion, please? Tony first. Matt second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item B, resolved that the Board of Education approve the capital project resolution for the 2022 capital improvement project pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please?
Move.
Jeff first, Brian second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Oh, that one is, you're correct. Go ahead,
Okay,
Kim.
John?
Yes.
John?
Yes. Wait, I'm sorry, you better start over. I thought you said Jen the first time. Did you say Jen the first time?
I did, but I was asking if you wanted me to do it, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead, let's start the official roll call, please, Kim.
Official roll call, Jen,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Shelley,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Joan, Matt.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Okay, moving on to item C. Resolved that the Board of Education approve the disposal of surplus instructional materials pursuant to attached. Can I have a motion, please? Tony first. Second, Jeff. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. We've now gotten to the board roundtable, which we pretty much did. Does anyone have anything? Okay. Moving on to item 13. Resolved that the Board of Education enter into executive session to discuss the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, or the proposed acquisition, sale, or exchange of securities, but only when publicity would substantially affect the value of these things. Public Officers Law 105(1)-12. Matters which will imperil the public safety if disclosed in the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Can I have a motion, please? Shelley first.
Second.
Second, Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. We move into executive session. Are we staying here or going into the other room?
We can stay in here.
Yes, 5 minutes. Denise, 5 minutes.
Thank you.